This is Little Talk with Big Nikki.
Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Little Talks with Big Nikki. I am your host, Big Nikki. If you are watching this, you are probably noticing a new setup for the podcast. I need a bigger room. That is what I need in my life. More square footage. Unfortunately, I don't have the money for more square footage right now, but it is okay. So I did some reorganizing this week in my room. Low-key kind of excited to leave this space, leave this apartment, only because I wish I did have more space, at least a bigger bedroom size. Just don't have the space to be doing a podcast setup or any type of like photo shoot setup. That's a lot of people in my line of work, like freelance photographers and stuff, they've been doing like at-home shoots like for products and whatnot, and it's like I just really don't have the space to be doing that or having that set up. So I was really happy today. Well, not today. I was really happy this week, or this past weekend I should say, to go through all my stuff. I went through like all my clothes, all of my just stuff that I had like under my bed, in my closet, my shoes, like cleaned like all my winter boots, put those away, sending those home with me. Exciting news, I'm going home for a week, a little over a week actually, so that's exciting. Glad to just kind of maybe get out of the city for a little bit and reset and refresh, spend some time with my parents because I haven't really seen them since, all this quarantine stuff started, with the exception of my dad. Shout out to you, Dad. Thank you so much for driving all the way to Cleveland to change the battery in my car because it finally died after 7 years. So thank you for that. But yeah, so really with that exception, I haven't seen them since all this craziness started, and it was like a hard decision because I'm like, okay, do I go home and like take the risk? But then it's like my dad's going back to work, my mom's still going grocery shopping, so it's kind of like they could get it at any point and it necessarily wouldn't come from me. So we just said like, I mean, how much longer are we supposed to wait until we see each other, So we're just trying to be safe about it, trying to be smart about it, but it's like it's gonna be a risk no matter what. So we just kind of accepted that fact, and yeah, so I'm going home. So sending like a ton of my stuff home. It's just such a good feeling, like to clean stuff out, to make some more space available. Like right now I don't have hardly anything under my bed. My closet's pretty much like cleared, with the exception of the clothes hanging in it. But yeah, so I was able to then kind of rearrange my desk, because I don't know if y'all could tell, you probably couldn't if you watched the podcast, I was sitting on the floor the past couple weeks, in this like corner here, same corner I'm in right now. I was sitting like on the floor recording my podcast. First of all, the angle wasn't great in my opinion, with the camera, but I had to do what I had to do. And secondly, it was not great for my back. You probably saw me like getting like fidgety through the middle and the end of the episodes, and I was just trying to like rearrange myself because my back just was not having it. Was not having it at all. So yeah, this is gonna be the new setup until I probably move out, which will be in July. I don't know where I'm going. That remains to be seen. It's really gonna be dependent on if I get a job in enough time that I am able to then afford rent, or if I'm moving back home. So that's kind of where we're at with that. But yeah, it was still good to encourage everyone to organize, clean stuff out. I got like a whole garbage bag of clothes I like no longer want, and that's just such a good feeling because it's like I haven't worn this and I'm not gonna wear this. It's really hard during quarantine, I think, though, to like clean your closet out because it's like, oh, I haven't worn this in 3 months. Well, it's like, well, I haven't gone anywhere. It was so funny because Becca started cleaning her closet out yesterday too, and she was putting on like these dresses, and she was like, does this fit me okay? Like, should I keep this? I'm like, yeah, like keep it. And I was like, sometimes I feel like it would be really nice to be able to like put clothes on that aren't sweats. And she was like, we should just have a day like where we just like look nice. And just like, we're in the apartment, but we just look nice. And I was like, that's so silly. But I've seen people do that. I've seen people have like theme days, or like families who have been doing, not like dress up days, but like there's like a theme to it and you have to like find something in your wardrobe and like everyone dresses like that. It's cute. It's fun. I just feel like as much as I say like, oh, it would be nice not to be in sweats, I like low key enjoy the fact that I've been wearing the same hoodie and athletic shorts for 3 days now, and no one can judge me because no one's seen me. So yeah, it's nice, but then also I was like, oh man, like, and I know like I'm gonna get my summer stuff when I go home, so I'm gonna get like my shorts, my cute little rompers, and like summer dresses, and it's like, man, I wish I could like wear these and have an excuse to wear them somewhere to go. But I don't, but that's okay. Speaking of things I want to wear with nowhere to go, I am officially graduated, done with undergrad, finished like my last exam yesterday, and that's insane. Like, where did the past 4 years go? I have no idea. I feel like it went really slow, but also really fast at the same time. Like, I feel like I've been in school forever, which I guess if I think about it, I have been in school since I was, 5. But it also seems like really, really fast. Like, I'm just kind of been reminiscing a little bit about, oh, I remember like when we moved into our dorm, like freshman year, I was like all excited and I was like all gung-ho and I had these big plans. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna like join this organization and do all this stuff. And like, I did. Like, I feel like just about everything, there's a couple exceptions, I guess, but just about everything I thought I was gonna do and more. I know I talked about this probably before on the podcast. I never thought I'd have a podcast. I never thought I'd be doing vlogs. I never thought I would have an LLC for, freelance content creation. And I never thought any of that. So it's fun to kind of go back and relive the last 4 years and just how much growth I've had, career-wise, as in just individually, like personally. Yeah, it's been a long 4 years, but a short 4 years, if that makes any sense. I was supposed to be having my graduation ceremony tomorrow, which would be Saturday, May 9th. But of course, that is no longer happening. So they sent an email out saying that we would have virtual graduation on May 30th. Still don't really know what that entails or what that's going to look like. They're supposed to be, letting us know, details for that to come. But speaking of things that I have to wear that I can't wear, I went dress shopping with my mom literally the first weekend of spring break, which is right before, like, I'm talking 3-4 days before all this craziness happened. They told us that we weren't coming back for in-person classes, and the thought that I wasn't going to be graduating normally, started to like play itself out. So I got my graduation dress and it's hanging in the closet. And I am going to be taking photos. I am dead set on that. Literally just got the stuff from my mom. I did order myself a tassel, and that just came in, I think, yesterday from Amazon. So I will be taking grad photos, so I'm excited to do that. Ryan's gonna be taking them for me. I gotta kind of plan it out. That's one of my goals for like when I go home, is to kind of plan out like, okay, where do I want to go? What poses do I want to do? because I'm not really planning on graduating again. I'm really not planning on going back to school for anything at this point. I feel like I have done, the most. I mean, I'm gonna have 2 bachelor's degrees, and I'm like, what more can I do? The learning never ends. That's for sure. So for people asking like, oh, okay, like Nicole, like what's your plan like now that you're done? Well, considering the fact that I'm still unemployed, I'm gonna still be applying for jobs, but I am also going to create kind of like a schedule, curriculum, whatever you want to call it, for myself to be doing like online tutorials, online classes. There's things that I either want to learn or improve or do better, or B, things that I wasn't really taught in college, but a lot of these jobs that I'm seeing are like looking for these things. So I need to kind of self-teach so I can apply confidently and be like, yeah, I know how to do that. Like, yeah, I can do that, even if I don't have work experience necessarily doing it, I could still say, I have this certification that I got through Google or, Adobe, like whatever. And I can do these things. So really transitioning from, an undergrad degree to just more self-teaching, hopefully getting some like certifications, and yeah, just trying to figure out what to do next. But going back real quick, sorry, like my mind's jumping. Going back to the vlog, I did a vlog with my mom when we got my dress. And I thought I would be putting it out kind of like by the end of April, like right before my graduation, like, hey guys, got my grad dress, like just a fun like vlog that I did with my mom trying on dresses and stuff. And obviously I was like, well, I'm not gonna really be wearing it for like a ceremony, so like my timeline was all kind of messed up, and I was like, do I just not use this footage for anything? Like, what do I do? And then, sorry, little burp. Sorry, another little burp. It's probably because I'm drinking coffee. But then I had this like ingenious idea, genius, to put that footage, that vlog out for Mother's Day, which is 2 days from the time this podcast is airing. May 10th, I believe, is the date. And yeah, so I'm gonna do a special like Mother's Day edition vlog of me and my mom shopping for my graduation dress. So that's fun. I thought that was a good idea, a good use for it. So that'll be coming out if you guys want to check that out on my YouTube channel. If you're watching on YouTube, you of course know what that is. If you're watching on the podcast, or gosh, you're not watching on the podcast, you would be listening to the podcast on another streaming platform. I will link my YouTube below if you are interested in any of my other vlogs or that vlog in particular. But yeah, people, I feel like, are kind of looking to those of us that do create content, and they're kind of like, what are you creating content about these days? And I put kind of like a silly like Instagram story up yesterday where I was like, I bought a dragon fruit for the first time. So that's what my content's about. I've never had a dragon fruit before. I was in the checkout line and Ryan was like, do you even know how to cut that? Like, do you even know what you're doing with that? And I'm like, absolutely not. And then like that was when the idea was like, I should like do this for a vlog, came into my head, because I was like, yeah, I'm probably gonna mess this up somehow and I don't know what I'm doing, but it is the coolest looking fruit and I've always wanted to try it. So I was like, let's just get a dragon fruit. Why the heck not? Like, what else am I gonna do? So yeah, that's what my week has consisted of. Cleaning my room out, partially moving some of my stuff out, finishing my undergrad, vlogging, buying a dragon fruit. Exciting times. I am just happy that the sun's out. The temperature is getting slowly but surely warmer. I watch like all these YouTubers. So since I started vlogging, I've started watching vlogs. I never really watched vlogs before, but I started watching them because I kind of for inspiration, I guess you could call it, because I just kind of want to see like, what are they doing? How do they, do their videos, whether it's like how they talk to the camera or how they film or how they edit it, like, and there's so many different styles and like ways you can do it. I'm just kind of like trying to get a sense of what these individuals do and how they kind of make their vlogs their own. I feel like that's really, I have like some like branding elements, I guess you could call them, like in my videos right now, or obviously the way I talk, like my personality of how I correspond in the videos, but I feel like I'm still kind of like lacking like my unique individual thing. That's, someone will watch my vlog and be like, oh, that's like how, like that's her aesthetic, or like that's her like brand. I don't know. It's like a weird thing to think about. So yeah, I've just been watching the vloggers that I've found or that some people have recommended to me. And of course they are all, out in LA. So when they're doing their videos, they live in like these really nice houses or apartments, and the sun's always shining, and all the California vibes that us East Coasters just struggle to relate to sometimes. So yeah, I have been craving sun and warm temperatures. Even though going outside right now is like a little bit scary, just to feel like I'm in LA a little bit. I don't know what it is. I took a trip to LA. It was my first time out there last March for spring break, and I loved every minute of the trip. Like, don't get me wrong, loved every minute of the trip. Did not want to come back, especially because when I came back it was like 30 degrees here, so I was like, I'm not about that life. I don't know though if I could ever live in LA. Like, that's the thing, because my mom always was saying, because like the line of work my aunt's in, she's like, oh, like my aunt's like already offered, like if I did, get a job out there, need to move out there, need to like get on my feet a little bit, need some place to stay, like of course like they would take me, like no problem, and like super grateful for that. But I'm like, I don't know if I could live out here, and like the cost of living out there is crazy expensive, so you gotta take that into account too. Like, yeah, your salary might be something like 70 grand, but that really equates to like 40 grand here, and which, not that that's like bad or anything, but it's just things are just so expensive out there, like housing and stuff, and it's like, here I can maybe hopefully with a decent job live on my own, but out there I feel like that's like almost impossible. Like, you almost have to have like a roommate, and I just and I feel like I'd want to explore more of the state of California. Like, I went to San Diego. Sorry, I can't talk. I went to San Diego when I went to SeaWorld, but it's not like I got to see San Diego. I just, we drove there, went to SeaWorld, and drove back. And I just feel like maybe I don't want to live like in LA. Maybe is my thing. I didn't get to see like downtown LA a lot. Like, we went to see Justin Timberlake's Man of the Woods concert at the Staples Center. So I was like in that part, but there again, like I didn't just get to kind of explore, like walk around, drive around, like downtown LA, or, obviously like San Francisco, San Diego, like all those places are like kind of farther away. Malibu even is like a little bit of a drive from where we were staying. So it's just like, I feel like I would really love like California for sure. But I don't know, because that's what people always are like asking me, like my parents, like family, friends, are like, are you gonna stay, here after you graduate? Well, obviously this was like pre-Rona times. And I always said, like, if I can do things that like make me happy, that, find a job, like find work that I enjoy doing here in Cleveland, then I have no problem, staying in Cleveland. It's easier to say that when it's, May and it's like warm and sunny instead of, January when it's a blizzard. But I was like, yeah, I have like no problem staying in Cleveland. And like the hard part is like, this is like where all your friends are, and like work wise, like I already have connections here, and I have potential clients here, and I know people do it. I know people do it all the time. I know a lot of people, even just here from Cleveland State, that have graduated and, moved to different cities. But I always feel like I hear those people saying like they have friends like in those cities, like, or they know people in those cities. I don't know how, through what means, but they know other people there. I feel like I very rarely hear that someone just packed all their stuff up, drove like across the country or, many states away, and just started a new life, and like they didn't know anyone. That definitely happens. I'm not saying it doesn't. I just feel like that's very rare, and I feel like that's very scary. I just don't know how I feel about that. I always I don't know. I guess I always thought if I did move like cities or whatever, I would be, like engaged or married, and like even if I didn't know anybody else like in that city, I would at least have like my, to-be spouse or spouse with me. So at least like you have somebody, but just like the thought of packing all my stuff up and like, everything's like here. That's why I feel like it's so hard. Like that's why it's so hard to get like out, is because you're like, but my family's here, my friends are here, and I think it's a valid thing. So yeah, I don't know, because I haven't really been looking at jobs unless they're work from home, but jobs like where I'd have to go in that are outside of like the Cleveland area. And I don't know if I should be. It's like so weird though, because it was like, I didn't have a plan. I had no idea what I was doing. And then things happened like within just like the past 6 months where I was like, oh, like I want to be a freelancer. Like this is where I feel like I'm like my fit is. And so I LLC'd myself. And then so I did kind of have that plan again. And I was like, okay, like I have iHeart, like I'll stay there as long as I need to until like, freelance work picks up, then maybe I'll, leave iHeart. Like just, I had at least a partial plan. But now that this has all happened, it's like, well, I can't really do the work that I thought I was going to be able to do at this point, freelance wise, working as a production assistant, all that stuff, because everything is on hold and not happening right now. So now I'm like kind of back to like that square one that I was in, I don't know, probably like a year ago, where I was already starting to think like, what am I going to do? Am I going to try to take a job here, or am I trying to leave? And it's like, I really don't know. I feel like especially now is like not a good time to be trying to move across state lines. I feel like that would be really stressful with everything going on. So it's just like, I don't know. I don't know what to do. I guess all that to say, well, obviously that I don't know what I'm doing. But also, sorry, I was just making sure I actually hit record on the audio, because Trey Kennedy talks about that all the time. He forgets to like hit record and he's like half hour in. And I just feel like I would do the same dumb thing. So, but I did. I hit record, so we're good. But yeah, all that to say, I don't know what I'm doing, but also like I have like this fantasy almost about like LA and like what LA's like, but I don't know if I want to live there. Like I don't know. I don't know. But there again, like I feel like I would love to live in California. I just don't. Oh, that's what I was trying to say. People like family, friends and stuff, they're like, "Oh, like would you want to like move somewhere else?" And it's like I've barely traveled in my life, let alone my adult life. Like that trip to LA was like the biggest, longest trip I have ever taken outside of Cleveland, honestly. So to me, it's like, I don't know, because like I always hear, especially girls, like when this is like a white girl joke, that, you know, people like make fun of, but white girls having like their bachelorette in like Nashville, and like all these like white girls are like, I love Nashville. And it's like, I've never been to Tennessee in my life. Like, I don't know if I love it or hate it. I don't know. I really don't know. And like, I would always say like, this was like when I was like way younger. Can we talk about that for a second? Do you hate, I hate this. I hate when I said things when I was younger, and I'm talking like before I was 15 or 16 even. And then people, like your parents or like people who know you, like sometimes maybe even friends, but like family friends, more like adults, they'll be like, oh yeah, like Nick said like, well, sorry, people call me Nick. But they're like, yeah, like Nick said, she wants to like move, she wants to live in Georgia. And it was like, okay, I think I said that when I was like 10, maybe 12. And I think I literally came to that conclusion because I love peaches. So that to me is not a very good reason to just pick up my life and move to another state that I've never been to. Okay, let me just clarify. I have never been to Georgia. I just said that because I like peaches. But then like my mom, like literally half of like my, you know, high school career was like, yeah, like Nick after college, she wants to like go to Georgia. And I was like, Mom, I came to that conclusion because of a fruit. I just, no. I'm like, I don't get it. But I hate that because it's like you were so naive. That's why I think I hate it, because it's like, okay, I said that how many years ago? I clearly don't know what I'm talking about. Clearly naive to life experience. No, I don't. There again, I don't know if I want to move to Georgia. I've never been there. I don't know. But yeah, I haven't traveled a lot, so I don't know like where I want to go. Or like, I know Emma Chamberlain, one of the vloggers that I watch all the time, she lives in LA, but she really loves New York. She always talks about like how much she loves New York City. She would want to move there one day, but she's like been there multiple times. I have never been to New York. I have no idea if I'd want to live there or not. So it's just hard. It's like hard because I'm like, I don't know. Because you're like a tourist, like being there for a week doing fun things is one thing, but then being there permanently and like having like a job and like a routine, like you might not like it after a time. And I'm not a risk taker like that. Like I'm not the type of person where I would just be like, you know what, I'm gonna apply for this job in New York. Let's say I got the job or something. And I'd just be like, yeah, I have never been there before, have no idea if I even like it, but I'm just gonna pack all my stuff up and move there. No. I am too coordinated and calculated and too much of a planner to just, no. That's like too much spontaneity for me. No, thank you. just like you've never been there, but you're just gonna move there. Like, I totally understand. Like, I have a friend that was in my capstone class with me. She does work for like a New York company, and you know, she's been there, and she was like, I love New York. Like, I got this internship. She was there for like the summer, like for this internship, loved it. They offered her like full-time after graduation. She like has plans to move there. That to me makes sense. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that makes sense to me because you were there for like an extended period of time and you were able to like almost act like you were living there and get a feel for it, and then you come to that decision. That makes sense. I'm okay with that. But yeah, just packing your life up and you've never been someplace before. I don't know. Maybe I'm just at a disadvantage compared to most people because I feel like compared to everyone else I talk to, I just haven't traveled. It's like literally everybody else, like I hear they're like, oh yeah, like we went to Florida and we went to North Carolina and we went to Cancun and we went to, I don't know, Arizona, and like, oh yeah, I have family in Colorado. And it's like, what? What? No, I have not traveled. So I don't know these things. I'm an inexperienced traveler, which means I am an inexperienced in trying to pick out my next living location. I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah, basically what I'm saying is we are back to square one in all aspects. As tempting as it really does sound to apply for a job in LA and move out there, and you know, like I said, if I need to stay like a month or two at my aunt's to like save money to move somewhere, like that would be great. I do have like that connection where like I do have family out there, which is great, but it's also like, man, that's a lot. That is a lot, and that's scary. And I don't know anybody else in LA except for famous people and famous YouTubers that have no idea who I am. So that's where I'm at with that. But see, there again, it's like, am I just idolizing LA? Am I? I feel like that could get into like a whole other discussion of things. Okay, this is kind of, okay. I'm gonna dive into this real quick because me and Becca are watching a show. I won't say which show, but if I kind of start to say this and you know what I'm talking about, just, you know. But I don't want to spoil it for anyone who hasn't seen it. So we're watching the show, and pretty much the whole basis for 6 seasons now has been this guy trying to get revenge on this other guy who killed his wife and daughter. Understandably, you know, So finally the day comes that he gets his revenge on this guy. And it's just like the whole thing. First of all, it was like crazy. The writers of the show were, I just hit my desk, sorry. The writers of the show were like really good, but the whole thing was like in that episode, like when you're watching all this unfold and it's like, he's so close, like he's gonna get him, like, and you almost want that for him because the way that they portray the character seeking revenge, like he's like a good guy. But this is like his one like kind of evil like tendency, I guess you can call it. And it like finally happens, and it was just like, that was it? Like, we didn't get answers to like our questions. He was like, I'm sure you have a lot of questions, and the guy's like, no, like I don't have questions. Like, he was just so like focused on like getting his revenge. He was like, he didn't ask questions, and it was so like almost anticlimactic, if that makes sense. Like, it was good, you're like, oh, it's done, but then you were like, wait, that was it? After 6 seasons of us, you know, living in this world of, you know, chasing this guy, and it was like, we finally figured out who it was, because his identity was a secret up until the very end, and it's like, that was it. And so I feel like we do that with life a lot of the times, like where we idolize or fantasize like this idea of something, and then like we finally get to that place, like we finally get to that time, and we're like, this is it. Like, this is what I was, you know, waiting for and like dreaming about for like all these years or this, all this time. And it's like, that's it. Because that's how I kind of feel that right now. I mean, obviously circumstances are different than I thought they were going to be, but that's how I feel with finishing my undergrad. Because like for the last 4 years, it was like, that's the goal, like graduation, like earning my degree. And it's like, you're so invested, and like this guy was so invested in like finding this other guy, and like I was so invested in just like completing my assignments and like doing group projects and finishing papers. It was almost like now I'm like at the end and I'm like, this is it. Like, this is the feeling. This is the end of it. And you're just like, this is it. It's just so anticlimactic. And I don't know. I feel like we do that a lot. We get inside of our own heads and we fall into the trap of building things up in our mind to almost to a point of like such a high expectation, or yeah, I would call it that. Such a high expectation of what this is gonna feel like or what this is gonna be like, and then almost like left disappointed because it's not that, or it doesn't play out like that. And I think that's why, like, not actually having a graduation ceremony is so disappointing for me, because part of that fantasy and that like vision for the past 4 years in completing my degree has been, me picturing myself like in like the Wolstein Center in my cap and gown, my family's like up in the, stands, and like walking across the stage, praying to God I don't trip, shaking the president's hand, like going to dinner afterwards, like all this, like all the details of it. And I feel like that's what we do though. Like I feel like when something's like important to us, that's like what we do is we invest like all this time into it. And then like the day finally comes, the time finally comes, and like it's happening. You like almost can't even appreciate it for what it is, or like if something goes awry or like it's not exactly what you pictured, then you're just disappointed because your expectation of it was one thing and like now it's actually happening as something else. I don't think it's a bad thing. I think that's just human nature. I think that's what we do. I specifically think when I talk like that about like wedding days, and I feel like that's how I'm going to be like, whenever I would get married, is you have like this vision of what you want the day to be like and what you think everyone's going to look like and how you think everyone's going to act, and like nobody better act crazy at my wedding, or like, nobody better propose, or like families better get along, and like you just think of like all these things. And then it's like, I low-key want like an outdoor wedding. But then I'm like, I live in Northeast Ohio, so do I trust the weather? Probably not. So then I think like, what if we had planned for an outdoor wedding, but then like the day before, like they're calling for rain and we have to make the call to like move it inside. So like already the picture of what I thought was going to be happening of like, oh, I'm getting married outdoors is now not happening because I have to go indoors. And like there's like that disappointment because it's like not what you were hoping or what you had envisioned it to be. I think that's just like an interesting thing to think of. Same thing, like bringing it back to my point about like LA, like is LA and like California as a whole like just this place that I have kind of built up in my head to be like more than it is, because I haven't spent a lot of time out there and it is so different from, things here. Life out there is just different than things here. The weather's different from things here in Ohio. So it's just like, did I build up like this fantasy around it? But then if I actually like went there, it would be disappointing to me. Or like I'm saying, like if I moved out there, would it be disappointing to me? It very well could be. I don't know. It's funny because I've heard people say this about famous people too. They're like, I don't want to meet anybody famous because it's like I have this idea of them, or I've heard famous people say this about other famous people, where they're like, I don't want to work with them because I have like this idea of them in my head. And then like if we work together and like maybe, there's like a creative disagreement or whatever, then they're like that like fantasy, like that pedestal that I've kind of like placed them on kind of is ruined now. And it kind of oh goodness. It kind of wrecks your mental world, really. Because it's like sometimes I think I should go back to school to study psychology, because I find all this so fascinating, and I'm not a psychologist. I have no training. I'm just purely observing and diving into what I hear and see other humans doing and what I think and feel. I am not certified to be talking about any of this from a clinical standpoint, so what I say is not the end all be all. I'm just making observations and theories, not scientifically proven. But it's like the human brain, you think as a whole, is built upon how many of these smaller expectations and fantasies. So, you allow your brain like, oh, in this area of my relationship, I see it going like this. In this area of my career, I see it going like this. Or this life event, I see going like this. And you like kind of build like all these separate little stories up in your head. And then it's like, with that celebrity saying, oh, I don't want to work with that person because then if it doesn't turn out how I want it to, or if they're not how I think they are, it kind of ruins that perception of them. If you think about it, if that happens enough times to those different pockets of what you might call like unrealistic stories that you've developed in your head, then that kind of will rock your entire perception on people and the world. And I think like that's why some people are so jaded about certain things. Like I think specifically about people who like hate the church in general. And it's more than likely because they had a bad experience that did not match an expectation of the church in their head. And I'm not saying that they're not valid. Like believe me, there are some crazy things happening out there. But what I'm saying is like, so their expectation was not met in the way that they thought it was going to be. And so now their whole perception on the idea of church and religion, whatever you want to call it, is now jaded by the fact that reality didn't match what they thought reality was going to be. So now how they look at it is kind of corrupted. If that makes any sense. I think that makes sense. I feel that way all the time because I've thought about because anyone who knows me knows I love Beyonce, right? So I'm like, oh, like Beyonce's like, she's so awesome. I love her. But then it's like, first of all, could I handle meeting her? I feel low key like I might pass out, or I might just start crying, or I might literally just go into shock. But I'm like, if I did meet her ever, like, would I want to? Because then I think like, what if she's not as great as I think she is? What if she's not as great as I make her out to be? And then it's like the same thing, because then it's like your whole like foundation of like how you view people or, certain areas in general will then be like corrupted, and your mind has to kind of like deal with the fact that you were wrong. And and I think that's why people in like bad relationships feel sometimes, because not that I've ever had this happen, but just the fact of like, you thought that person was like one way, or you thought that they were like one thing, and then like you find out like the truth. It's almost like the truth being revealed. The blinders have come off of your eyes and you see things for what they really are. Then your whole like you're like, what? I don't know what to believe anymore. And it's because you built that vision up in a certain way, and then when it's not that way, your whole like you're just shook. Your whole world is just like, what? You like can't even like, you know what the truth is, but then you can't like believe it. I think I said this in like last week's podcast. Like, believing and knowing are two totally separate things, because you can know things, like you know things, but believing them, whole nother ball game. And it's like so funny that kind of just came back around, because it's like it's like sometimes you just want to live naively. Sometimes you just want to stay in a state of innocence and ignorance, if you want to call it that, where you don't know things. Because the world before you knew certain things was here. And the world after you know certain things is kind of all over the place. It goes from even to uneven very quickly. There again, just how you think of someone, and then you find out certain things about them and you're just like, what? And then it's like, then the next time you have to like interact with them, you're just like, I don't know what to do. You're like, I know, and you probably know that I know, but do you know that I know? And it's just like, you're trying not to like treat anybody any differently, but you know, it's like you knew them as one thing, one way, and now you know other things, so now you have to act like your brain is still in that little like box of like how things should be and like how you perceive things to be, but it's like not, and you're just all like messed up. You're just messed up in the head. We all are. It's okay. Just own it, guys. Just own it. And don't act like that's never happened to you, where you find out information about someone and you're like, I'm not gonna let this change my like opinion of them. And like necessarily you don't. Like, you're still gonna treat them the same. You're not gonna be disrespectful. You're, you know, how they treat, I always say like how people treat you is first and foremost like important. Like how are they treating you? What is their relationship like with you? That to me is like the most important factor in how I am then going to treat them. But then it's also like, well, now you know this other information and you're just supposed to act like you don't, but you do. And then it's like, okay, like, and you just kind of have to sort it out in your head, and you're like, okay, but this doesn't really have anything to do with me, but I now know more of like who this person is. So, you know, it's just like things to keep in the back of your head, because it's like, okay, like just be aware of it, but I'm not going to let it like affect my relationship with them. It's like it's a tricky business, tricky place to be in. Yeah. But anyway, that's like my take on that. I think we idolize things, idolize people. We like build them up to this like unrealistic expectation in our head. And then when that ends up not being the case, even if we don't realize that we have done that, most of the times we do. We like form a perception, we form like this vision of a person, or like I said, an event or something. And then it's like when that doesn't happen that way, or that person doesn't treat you how you thought they were going to, or they don't turn out to be like who you thought they were, then it's like your whole kind of world is just like, I don't know who to trust, and I don't know like what's what. If the sky's, you know, up or down, if the grass is green, you just don't really know. And I said, like, this isn't an advice channel. I don't really know how to fix that, because I know I do that with things and people. I just told you, like, Beyonce, like, I think she's the greatest thing ever, but maybe she's not. I don't know. But it's like, I don't really want to find out, because in that part, I just want to live in my ignorance, you know, and enjoy her for like what she is to me, if that makes sense. But we don't always get the choice to live in ignorance. Sometimes we do need to, as Becca would say, not bury our head in the sand. And sometimes we do just need to find out the truth and then accept that truth and cope with it. And that's like the scariest thing of why we don't want to know the truth, is because then we have to, like I said, find a way to deal with it, find a way to like process that information and proceed in our actions accordingly with how we're processing it, whatever that might look like in a certain situation. But it's like just harder. It's harder to know, and it's harder to accept the truth than to live in ignorance. And that's why I think sometimes people go through situations in life and they just stay ignorant because it's easier that way. They're not wrong, but I don't think that's necessarily like a good thing or a healthy thing either, to just go throughout life being ignorant to things and situations. But that's what some people do. So, yeah. That was a good talk, guys. Good talk. Fun talk. I didn't have any of that planned. LOL. But I just enjoy talking, and then as I'm talking, like, things come to me and we investigate them. So yeah, if you have a expectation or it's kind of like a fantasy, I feel like fantasy is kind of like a taboo term now, because like people use that in terms of like, relational things. In case there's like any young ears listening, I won't get into that, but y'all know what I mean. But that's not what I'm talking about when I'm talking about that. You know what I mean? Like, just fantasizing, like I said, about like my graduation day or like your wedding day, like what you think it's gonna be. It is, until it occurs that way, it technically, it is a fantasy. It is like this dream almost of like what it's gonna be like. So, just to clear that up. Y'all don't be twisting my words, making me look like I'm talking about other things that I'm not talking about. But yeah, so it's hard. It's hard not to build those expectations. But I think it's fine to build them. I think it's just then the case of preparing yourself that they are not going to be met. Or, talking yourself down a little bit. Like, this is a little unrealistic, Nicole. Not that I ever would have imagined that I'd have to do that with my graduation. But, with other things, like on your wedding day, like telling yourself, like, okay, if we have to move it inside, like, it's still going to be good. Like, and it's hard because, especially, women, we take all that stuff like super serious and super personal, and it's like a very important event. You want it to go a certain way. Like, I'm totally going to, say I'm going to be in that boat. But it's just like preparing yourself mentally for what could happen. So then when it does happen, you're not as disappointed. You're still going to be left with like a little disappointment. But yeah, maybe we'll delve, is that the right word? I try to use big words sometimes. I'm like, I don't even know what that means. My vocabulary is like that of a 3-year-old probably. But yeah, I guess we'll dive into that more, I think, later on in the episodes. I feel like that'll be a good topic. Expectations leading to disappointments. I think that'll be a good one. So yeah, with that being said, appreciate you guys so much for listening, watching, if you're watching this. Make sure you subscribe if you're on YouTube. Make sure you download, follow me. If you're streaming on any other platforms that this is on, I've lost track at this point because I just put it on everything I possibly could for the time being. So yeah, I appreciate you guys so much for listening. Share with a friend. I hope to see you back next time for a new episode. And yeah, I think that's all we got. Stay healthy and stay safe, y'all. I'll see you next time.